Deep inside the peaceful forest, the golden morning sun shimmered through the tall trees. Birds chirped, streams whispered, and a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of wildflowers. But suddenly, this calm paradise was broken by frantic cries echoing through the woods, the desperate calls of a deer in distress. A young deer, while searching for food near a fallen tree, had accidentally disturbed a giant beehive hidden among the branches. Within moments, thousands of angry bees swarmed around it. The deer panicked and began running wildly, its frightened hooves thundering through the undergrowth. The buzzing cloud followed close behind, stinging relentlessly. Nearby, two forest rangers, Arif and Hassan, were patrolling the reserve when they heard the terrified cries. Realizing that an animal was in grave danger, they quickly called for backup from the local wildlife rescue team. Within minutes, a group of rescuers equipped with protective suits, smoke sprayers, and first aid supplies arrived on the scene. Following the sound of the chaos, they found the deer cornered near a small riverbank, surrounded by thousands of bees. The frightened animal was trembling, unable to move. The rescuers acted fast. One of them lit a special smoke torch that created thick white clouds, confusing and dispersing the bees. The forest rangers used long sticks to gently drive the swarm away, while another team member threw wet cloths over the deer to shield it from stings. As the buzzing faded, the rescuers approached carefully. The deer lay weak and exhausted, its skin swollen with several bee stings. The team quickly administered first aid, applying soothing herbal ointment and cool water to the wounds. Arif whispered softly to calm the deer as they placed it on a stretcher to transport it back to the forest rescue center. After several hours of care, hydration, and rest under the watchful eyes of the veterinarians, the deer finally opened its eyes. It blinked, lifted its head, and slowly stood up, looking around as if to thank its rescuers. The team smiled with relief and joy. A few days later, the forest rangers released the deer back into its natural home. It bounded gracefully through the tall grass, free once again. The buzzing of the bees was now just a memory, a reminder of how fragile yet precious every life in the forest truly is. The next morning after the dramatic rescue, the forest was quiet again, but something felt unusual. Arif and Hassan, the two rangers who had saved the deer, stood outside the rescue station discussing the strange event. Bees don't attack like that without reason, Arif said, staring into the dense forest. They must have been disturbed or felt threatened. Hassan nodded in agreement. Let's investigate. Something must have changed in their habitat. The two rangers set off with a small team of researchers and a drone operator to scan the area where the attack happened. As they walked deeper into the forest, they noticed signs of disturbance, broken branches, blackened leaves, and an unusual smell of chemicals in the air. Looks like someone's been here, whispered one of the researchers, examining the ground. These tire tracks are fresh, maybe from a truck. They followed the tracks for nearly half a mile until they discovered something shocking. A group of illegal loggers had been secretly cutting down trees near the bees' nesting area. The buzzing chaos had started when their chainsaws roared through the forest, destroying several beehives. Terrified and homeless, the bees had scattered, and the frightened deer had wandered right into their swarm. This explains everything, Arif said grimly. The bees were only defending themselves. They've lost their home. The team immediately contacted the forest department headquarters. Within hours, a full investigation was launched, and enforcement officers moved in to shut down the illegal logging operation. The culprits had already fled, but they left behind tools, vehicles, and several damaged hives. As the area was secured, Hassan found one partially broken hive still occupied by a small group of surviving bees. The queen bee was injured, and thousands of worker bees hovered restlessly around her. We can't just leave them, he said. With careful hands, the rescue team collected the surviving bees and transported them to the Forest Rescue Center. There, the experts created a temporary artificial hive using natural wax and branches from the forest. They treated the queen bee with a special herbal solution to help her recover. Over the next few days, the center buzzed with activity, literally. The rescued bees began rebuilding their hive, while the forest rangers monitored their progress. At the same time, the deer that had been attacked was healing steadily. It now grazed peacefully in the center's open sanctuary, its wounds almost gone. One afternoon, Arif walked into the treatment area and smiled as he saw the deer standing near the bee enclosure. Looks like our friends are getting along again, he said softly. The deer, curious but calm, sniffed near the new hive, showing no fear. The bees, sensing no threat, continued their work quietly. The rangers realized this was a powerful message from nature. Balance and respect were the keys to harmony in the wild. The incident had reminded everyone that even the smallest disturbance could have dangerous consequences for the entire ecosystem. To prevent future incidents, the Forest Department launched an awareness campaign across nearby villages. Posters and workshops taught people about protecting bees, avoiding deforestation, and reporting illegal activity. Children were invited to the rescue center to see how the forest team cared for animals and bees alike. Weeks later, the same spot where the deer had once been attacked was now green and thriving. New trees had been planted, and fresh flowers bloomed around the repaired hives. The bees had returned, their buzzing now peaceful, a sign that life was healing. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, the team gathered to release the recovered deer back into the wild once more. The animal paused for a moment, looked back at its rescuers, and then leapt gracefully into the forest, disappearing among the trees in golden light. Arif turned to Hassan and smiled. Nature always finds a way to heal, as long as we help it. Hassan nodded, watching the bees drift lazily in the warm air. And now, he said quietly, the forest sings again, not with cries, but with life. In the quiet outskirts of a dense forest, a small raccoon named Rusty lived happily among the trees. He was a curious little creature, always exploring new corners of his home. One sunny afternoon, Rusty noticed something sweet in the air, the smell of honey. Following the scent, he came across a large tree with a golden beehive hanging from one of its branches. Unable to resist, Rusty climbed up the tree to take a closer look. The hive was dripping with honey, glistening under the sunlight. He gently poked it with his paw, hoping to get a taste. But the moment he touched the hive, a loud buzzing filled the air. Suddenly, hundreds of poisonous bees swarmed out, circling him angrily. Terrified, Rusty tried to climb down, but it was too late. The bees surrounded him, stinging his fur and face. He yelped in pain and jumped from the tree, landing hard on the ground. The buzzing continued as he ran through the bushes, but the bees wouldn't stop chasing him. Nearby, a group of forest rangers was patrolling the area when they heard the distressed cries of the raccoon. One of the rangers, Officer Ben, quickly spotted Rusty darting through the trees, covered in bees. "That poor animal is in trouble," he shouted. The team immediately sprang into action. They put on protective suits and grabbed smoke canisters to calm the bees. Two rangers carefully approached Rusty, who had collapsed near a fallen log. The team lit the smoke, and slowly, the buzzing began to fade as the bees scattered away. Once the area was clear, the rescuers gently picked up the trembling raccoon and placed him in a safe carrier. Back at their animal care unit, the rescue team cleaned Rusty's wounds and applied soothing ointment to his stings. A veterinarian checked him thoroughly, ensuring there were no infections. After a few hours, Rusty finally began to relax, his breathing steadying. The next morning, Rusty opened his eyes to find food, water, and the kind faces of his rescuers. He was safe. A few days later, once fully healed, the team released him back into the forest, far from the beehives. As Rusty climbed a tree one last time, he turned back as if to thank his rescuers. Officer Ben smiled and said softly, "Stay curious, little guy, but maybe stay away from the bees next time." The raccoon disappeared into the forest, healthy and free once again, a beautiful reminder of bravery, compassion, and the bond between humans and wildlife. After a few peaceful days of recovery at the Wildlife Rescue Center, Rusty the raccoon was finally ready to return to the forest. His wounds had healed, and his playful energy had returned. The rescue team, especially Officer Ben, had grown fond of him. Every morning, Rusty would greet the team with cheerful chirps and tiny paws reaching out for food. The same kind of noise he used when calling for help back at the rescue center. The rescue team returns. Miles away, Officer Ben and his team were out on another patrol. Suddenly, one of them heard a faint but familiar sound through their forest audio sensors, a raccoon's distress call. "That's Rusty's call," Ben exclaimed. Without wasting a second, they followed the direction of the signal. When they arrived at the riverbank, they saw Rusty jumping up and down, circling the muddy pit. Inside, the terrified fawn struggled weakly. Ben quickly understood what was happening. "Good job, Rusty," he said as he and his team rushed to help. Using ropes and a portable winch, the rescuers carefully pulled the fawn out of the pit. The frightened animal was shivering, covered in mud, but alive. Rusty stood nearby, watching everything closely. Once the fawn was safe, it gently nuzzled Rusty as if to thank him. Ben couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Looks like our little hero just helped us with another rescue," he said proudly. The team took a few pictures of the brave raccoon and the rescued fawn before returning both animals safely to their habitats. Night of the swarm. That night, as the moon rose above the treetops, Rusty rested in his hollow tree. The forest was quiet, but not for long. A sudden buzzing sound filled the air again. A swarm of bees, larger and angrier than before, was moving across the forest. Rusty's heart raced. He remembered the pain, the panic, the stings. But this time, he didn't freeze. He quickly climbed to a higher branch and watched carefully. The swarm seemed to be searching for a new hive location, moving dangerously close to the animal paths, where many creatures passed daily. Rusty knew this could end badly. If the bees built a hive near the main forest trail, animals, or even humans, could get hurt. Remembering how the rescue team had helped him, Rusty decided he had to warn them. He dashed toward the ranger station at the forest's edge. It was a long, risky journey, but his determination pushed him forward. Through streams, bushes, and fallen logs, he ran non-stop until he reached the familiar smell of humans and the glow of campfire light. Warning the rescuers. Officer Ben was sitting near the truck, writing notes about the day's patrol, when he heard scratching at the door. Looking up, he saw Rusty, panting, muddy, and wide-eyed. Deep in the wild heart of Africa, near a quiet riverbank, a large hippopotamus lived peacefully with her herd. The calm water and green surroundings were her home, but one sunny afternoon, everything changed. The hippo wandered away from the river, searching for fresh grass near a group of old trees. Without realizing it, she had come too close to a massive beehive hidden in one of the branches. The bees living inside were poisonous and aggressive, protecting their hive from any threat. As the hippo brushed against the tree, the hive cracked slightly, and within seconds, thousands of poisonous bees swarmed out, buzzing furiously. The giant animal tried to run back toward the river, but the swarm surrounded her from all sides. Her thick skin helped at first, but the bees attacked her face, eyes, and open wounds. The hippo roared in pain, splashing into the muddy water to escape. Nearby villagers heard her cries echo through the forest and quickly called the wildlife rescue team. Within minutes, a team of trained rescuers arrived with protective suits and smoke equipment. They could see the hippo struggling in the water, shaking her head wildly while hundreds of bees hovered above her. The team knew they had to act fast. They used smoke cannons to calm the bees and slowly approached the frightened animal. 2 rescuers waded into the river with nets and blankets to cover the hippo's face, while others distracted the swarm with smoke bombs. After several tense minutes, the bees finally began to scatter. The rescuers guided the hippo to the shore and treated her wounds with cooling ointment and herbal medicine to ease the pain. A wildlife doctor checked her vitals and confirmed that, despite the bee stings, she would fully recover. As the sun set over the river, the team released the hippo back into the cool waters. She dipped her head below the surface and gave a deep, thankful snort before swimming away to her herd. The rescue team stood silently for a moment, watching the hippo's massive body rest near the riverbank. The chaos had finally ended, but the real challenge had just begun. The poisonous bee stings had caused visible swelling on the hippo's eyes and neck, and though she was calm, her breathing was heavy. The team knew that if the poison spread further, she could lose her life within hours. The leader of the rescue team, Officer Malik, quickly gave instructions to his crew. "We can't leave her here," he said firmly. "We need to move her to the animal care center before nightfall." The sun was already sinking behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The team began preparing a large transport truck equipped with a portable water tank and a soft cage designed for wild animals. But first, they needed to make sure the area was safe. The bees had returned to their hive, but there was a risk they could attack again. To prevent this, the team used smoke canisters to drive the bees deeper into the forest, away from the injured hippo. Meanwhile, the wildlife medic, Aisha, knelt beside the hippo with her medical kit. She gently applied herbal ointments to the swollen areas and injected a mild sedative to ease the animal's pain. "She's strong," Aisha whispered, brushing off the mud from the hippo's skin. "If we move her carefully, she'll survive." The team tied a wide harness around the hippo's body, connecting it to a mechanical crane lift attached to their rescue truck. Slowly, with teamwork and precision, they managed to lift the enormous creature and place her onto a bed of soft straw inside the transport cage. The hippo let out a low grunt but didn't resist. She seemed to understand that these humans were there to help. As the truck began its journey toward the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, Night settled over the forest. The roads were bumpy, and the thick fog made visibility poor. Officer Malik sat beside the driver, constantly checking updates on the radio. Behind them, Aisha monitored the hippo's condition, using a flashlight to check her breathing and pulse. Every few minutes, she sprinkled cool water on the hippo's skin to keep her temperature stable. Hours later, they finally reached the rescue facility, a place surrounded by bamboo fences, clean water pools, and open grassy fields. The workers, already alerted by Malik's message, were waiting with stretchers, lamps, and medical supplies. The hippo was carefully lowered into a shallow pool filled with medicated water. As the team worked, the tension in the air slowly faded. The bees' venom had caused mild infections around the eyes and mouth, but thanks to the quick rescue, the damage wasn't permanent. The doctors cleaned her wounds and applied natural anti-venom gel made from forest herbs. For the next few days, the rescue team stayed at the center to help with her recovery. The hippo was named Nya, meaning hope, in a local African dialect. Each morning, Aisha checked her wounds, while Malik made sure the forest near the hive was being inspected by local rangers to prevent future bee attacks. As days passed, Nya grew stronger. Her appetite returned, and soon she was eating fresh grass and fruits brought by the caretakers. Sometimes, she even splashed playfully in the water, a sign that her spirit was healing too. But the story didn't end there. The team wanted to understand why the bees had become so aggressive. A week later, they returned to the site of the attack with researchers. What they found was shocking. The hive had been disturbed by illegal honey collectors who had cut part of the tree and stolen honey, angering the bees and forcing them to relocate. Unfortunately, when Nya passed by, she became their unintended target. Officer Malik reported the illegal activity to the forest authorities. Soon, patrols were increased, and warning signs were placed around sensitive areas of the forest. Malik also launched an awareness campaign for local villagers, teaching them how to safely coexist with wild animals and insects. Every creature has a place in the ecosystem, he told them. We just need to learn to respect their space. Back at the rehabilitation center, the team prepared to release Nya back into the wild. It had been 3 weeks since the rescue, and she had completely healed. The morning of the release was beautiful. The sun reflected off the river's surface, and the forest seemed alive with birdsong. As the gates opened, Nya slowly walked toward the river. She paused for a moment, looked back at her rescuers, and let out a deep, soft sound, almost like a farewell. Then she stepped into the water, her massive body gliding gracefully under the golden sunlight. The team watched her disappear into the river's depths, their faces filled with pride and relief.